Good. All right, this is Music 215, Worship Leading, Class 7,
Man, I can't believe we're doing 7.
February 25, 2020. This is the penultimate class, the second to the last class.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
word.
one before the last one. And we are finishing up here. And tonight I want to talk about some practical stuff in terms of leading, modulation, transitions, and stuff like that. So, a couple things. Let's see, we are recording. Yes. Okay, a couple announcements. First of all, let's open in prayer. Anybody want to open us in prayer today?
Sure.
Okay, you got it.
Lord, I just want to thank you so much for tonight, God. Thank you for this class, Lord, and what this has taught us about worship, Lord. And I just pray that every single part of our lives we're worshiping in spirit and truth. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good. All right, so obviously we can't cover everything you could possibly want to know about leading worship, or everything that you would want to study about worship. It's a lifetime endeavor, just like anything else, I guess. It has to do with God. It's difficult to fathom how deep and how wide worship actually is. All I'm trying to do is give you some starting points with which you can, maybe jumping off points. So ideas, things that you can file away and say, hey, you know, I remember in class we covered some of this stuff and this might be worth exploring. And I've tried to tailor it somewhat so that we've got 2 pastoral majors in here so that it's information that you can take and apply. So tonight I'm going to get a little technical, and so music majors should be able to follow what I'm saying technically. Right? You get it? Good. And if you're not a music major or worship arts major, some of this may be a little foreign, but at the very least you can know how music, maybe some ideas about how music functions and how you might be able to work with a worship leader if you're a worship pastor, or if you're a regular pastor, if you're a senior youth pastor and you're working with a worship guy, that you know maybe at least the lingo, the things to talk about. Okay, announcements. Just want to make sure that if you're watching this, that everyone understands there is no final, but instead of the final, we've replaced that with 2 sets of book, the first half and the second half of the chapter book reviews and not book review, but chapter summaries and main points. Almost everyone's turned that in. It is you've done a great job, exactly what I asked you to do. If you haven't turned it in, make sure you get it in to me ASAP. And you can hear more about that if you go back and listen to some of the other classes. Also, if you go online in Canvas, you can see what it's got the description there. We won't have any in-class video for this week, any in-class video assignment today. We will have an in-class video assignment for next week. If you are here, you'll do it live. If you are at home, you're going to do your video assignment and then send it to me so that before class. So I need it before class next week, preferably by Sunday night, but Monday night would be fine too. If you got it to me Monday night, which I think is I think next Monday is the 2nd, March 2nd. Okay, you get to do it in class, so okay. And I want to mention this one more time. Generally, if you complete an assignment as described in Canvas, you will receive full points. So if you're wondering about your grade, if you've turned the stuff in and you haven't received a note back from me saying, this is unacceptable for these reasons, please redo this, then you're on track to do very well in the class. You're going to get an A. You just hand everything in and you prepare it correctly. You'll get an A. If instead you hand something in, or if you don't hand something in, that's a 0. That's not good. You won't get an A. And if you hand something in and I refuse to accept it because you haven't met at least the minimum requirements of the assignment, that will be a 0 until, but I give you full, but it's fine if you take it and redo it so that it becomes acceptable. Then I'll accept it, then you get full points for it. As long as I'm accepting it, you're getting full points. If I'm not accepting it, you're getting no points. So it's on off, it's binary. It's like computers, you know. Any questions about that? If you have any questions about your grade, if you have any questions about your grade, email me, or catch me in class. For next week, Shear, the rest of the book. Tonight we're going to try to get through chapter 5. Next week, Shear, chapter 6 through 8, and that finishes off this book. Okay, homework assignment for next week. You're reading in chapter summaries, for chapters 12 through 21 of the Whaley book is due on the 28th. 28th, I think, is a Sunday or Friday. You want to make it Sunday? We'll make it Sunday. And Sunday is the 1st?
Monday's the 2nd.
Monday's the 2nd. Sunday's the 1st. Okay, make it Sunday night. You can hand it in early, okay? The lead sheets, we'll make those due Sunday. You're going to give me a set of lead sheets, right? 3 lead sheets. I think it's 4 lead sheets. I have. I don't have it in front of me.
I have a
4 lead sheets.
Sorry.
Yes.
I have a question about the lead sheets. So I don't have Finale or Sibelius. Is there something else I can use?
Yes, you can. If you don't have any other program that you normally use, type out the song, or cut and paste the song on a sheet of paper, and write the chord symbols in above where they go.
Okay.
And that'll work. And then if you can hand me that actual physical document, or you can take a picture of it with your phone and send me the file.
Okay.
Okay. Or you can scan it. Any way you get it to it.
So the lead sheet is just the words of the song and the chords?
Yes, a lead sheet. Now that I can put on the screen. So. A lead sheet. Okay. Looks like this. Yeah, let's see. Okay, this is a typical lead sheet. Yeah, when it comes up. And CCLI actually has some. See, how does CCLI call them? Lead chords.
I think the lead is like the melody line.
Yeah. And the chord sheet, they have a vocal sheet, a lead sheet, and the chord sheet is doesn't matter. All I need is lead sheets. So you're going to do.
I think I turned in like chord charts.
Yeah. Well, you had.
Like the.
Didn't you just do words and?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me see what if I can get a picture of that. Okay, here would be. This is not what that is. Okay, here's a lead sheet. This is what I actually lead off of lead sheets when I lead sheets. Okay. No. This one. Okay. Okay, you can do this. Oh, Moon River. No, Moon Silver. Okay, where you have, because I think what you had, you didn't have melody written in, did you?
I just have the charts.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, so a lead sheet generally just has the melody and chords. Okay, so if you're, let's see, lead sheet for, give me a worship song.
Build my life.
Build my life.
Figures.
Okay, so media. Let me open that up. No, it's not. Okay. Well, if I signed into never let me do it. Yeah, that's not it. Another one. Everybody wants to charge for it. Okay, here we go. Here is here's a chord chart. If I there we go. Okay. So here's a chord chart. Okay, so this is, I have in my praise band, I have a piano, or I have a guitarist, and the guitarist doesn't read music. So all he wants is words and chords. So this is what I think you handed him. Okay, which is fine. Okay, so that allows the guitarist to strum and go, you know, worthy of all the praise we could ever breathe. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. For you. Jesus, the name above every other name. And we go, holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside. Sigh, what is that, a G over D? Died you, open up my eyes, show me who you are and fill me with your heart. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm picking the chords up, translating those into my guitar or whatever. Okay, so that's a chord chart. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, you can do this, or you can do a lead sheet. And a lead sheet. What is this? We built this city. Okay, a lead sheet is just. Why can't I just get a regular lead sheet from someone? That's not.
I think you can get the Nexus Live.
I can, but I'm not logged into it, so it won't let me pull them up. Here's lead sheet. It's just not going to let me pull it up. Okay. All right, so I got to buy it. But anyway, you can see here, this is a lead sheet. It has the melody line and chords. So the difference between a lead sheet and the pianist wants a lead sheet. Your pianist wants a lead sheet. The bass player probably wants a lead sheet. Okay. Your worship leader probably wants a lead sheet, and the reason they want a lead sheet is because they want the melody in front of them. Okay. The guy who plays guitar who doesn't read music is going to ignore the notes. They're just looking at the chords, and this just confuses them. So they want to put the words on there, put the chords above. All right. Either of those, lead sheets or chord sheets, will work. That's fine. Just so you know how to do it, and so you know kind of what people are going to need. Questions about that? Good. Good question. Whoever asked that question. Okay.
Those are just any 4 songs.
Yeah. You might want to do the songs that you have picked out on, so that when you lead next week, you can maybe bring songs with you and you can hand them out to us, and then we'll have them. That'd be cool. Okay. So lead sheets, and we'll look at March 1st. I may not get into Canvas to change the due date. Don't panic. Just remind me. I'll forget, but that's all right. And your course notebook is due next week on the 3rd, on class day. Or mail it to me by the 3rd. Your course notebook has everything that we've covered up to this point. Okay? Including, if you want to put some class notes in there, that's fine. Put your Whaley, the 2 sets of outlines and summaries and main points, your lead sheets, the reviews at the very beginning, reviews of the, it seems so long ago, of sites for worship leading. Remember that all the way back? Your statement about worship, that goes in there. Put all that together. And if you want to do it electronically, as a matter of fact, probably do it electronically. Just do a whole document. You don't have to actually hand in a physical notebook. That used to be the case with this class, but now that we do it online, just hand it in electronically, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Does that mean you just want us to compile it into one document?
Yeah, compile it all into one document, so I know you've done it. If you want to print it up and hand it in, that's fine. But at least one document, so it's all together, one place, and I know you've done it. Okay? So that way Jeremy will be happy too. So again, I'm teaching off of his notes. So, all right, let's see. This year, of course, notebook. Okay. What I was going to have you do for this week is I was going to have you pick one of your services and lead us in the music portion of the service. Then what I was going to have you do for next week was take what you led this week and rethink through it so that you're dealing with modulations and transitions between songs. That's where we're going to get a little technical, but we'll make it work for you. Okay? So we're going to skip this week and go straight to next week. So next week, what I need you to do is take one of the services. You've already done 3 services. You've done a contemporary, a blended, and a traditional service. Correct? You've handed that in. You have music choices on that service. For next week, I want you to choose one of those services. It's probably going to be either the contemporary or the blended. I would imagine. It could be the traditional, but I'm going to let you choose. And I want you to lead us through that service, applying some of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. All right? Questions? Okay. So this is real life service, real life worship leading. Okay. What is the circle of fifths? Dun, dun, dun.
Keys images.
So I've recently looked at this, but pretty much if a guy sings a G Then a girl's going to be a fifth higher than that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so now you're talking about harmonizing.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, and that's actually in the book. He talks about books. Okay.
That's where I read it, yeah.
Very good. I'm going to even take you a step back from that and talk about how music works. Music works by setting up expectations. Okay, this is the how-to of music. I'm going to try to cram about 40 years of experience and life knowledge on music into like maybe an hour. Maybe we'll only talk about it for 10 minutes. I'll try to gauge the conversation like Migo. My eyes glaze over. Right? Have you ever heard that? Yes, Migo. So as I look out there, and you'll appreciate if you're ever up in the front, you're leading people in worship or you're teaching a message, and they start to do this, you've lost them. Okay? Then you can say anything, but it won't make any difference. So, music happens in time. It is not a static event. I can make a note, but it's not music. The thing that makes music music is a series of notes that happen in time. Jokes cannot happen out of time because a punchline is meaningless unless you set it up. A story only works in time. God is not in time. God created time. God operates outside of time. We operate inside time. The fact that we operate inside time means that there's a number of unique things that we can do because of time. Now, since we're in the middle of time and we don't seem to have any control over it, even though we do, we can slow time down, can't we? Is there a way? How do we slow time down?
It's impossible. I can't.
We can.
I can't.
Yeah. That's one of the crazy things about time. We can slow time down.
Well, relative to the point.
Okay, good. I was looking for somebody to say how. Okay, so and how does that work? I mean, how can?
Because there has to be a constant.
Okay.
So
Yes.
if you base it off that constant, if everything's all speeding up, then all of a sudden you just kind of stop.
Okay.
And that's relative to the speed,
Okay.
and that's relative
Physics.
to the constant.
Okay, let's go back to physics. Okay. I started out as a physics major. Scary thought, isn't it? Okay. So there is a constant in the universe, and the constant is, other than God, God is a constant. God is constant. But other than God, what is a constant in the universe?
Time.
No? Time isn't. Time's variable.
True. Yeah.
Okay? It's the speed of light. Speed of light is constant.
So E equals mc squared. But
Okay? So, and that's energy times mass times the speed of light squared. Okay? So here is the crazy thing about time. We're going to do this really quick because it really has nothing to do with the fact, other than this is something that you should know. It's just like when they shoot rockets up into space and they're circling the Earth. We say they're weightless. They're about 95% of the weight is still there. Right? Gravity's still operative. Why do people float?
because there's no air up there.
Nope.
No
It's because they're
gravitation.
falling.
Okay.
Gravitational pull is almost as strong in orbit as it is on Earth. If you don't have gravitational pull, you don't have gravitational pull if you're halfway between here and Mars. But if you're in orbit around the Earth, you have to have gravitational pull. That's what keeps you in orbit. The thing that makes us weightless when we're orbiting the Earth is that we speed people up to the point where they don't hit the Earth. Okay? So if I fire a gun and the gun falls, or the bullet falls, okay, that it's weightless until it falls. If I weigh the bullet when it's here it has no weight. Do you understand? Because gravity is this way, and when the bullet's here, it has no weight. It does have a weight, but gravity isn't operating on it because of the speed. And it's not until the bullet turns this way that you actually even weigh it. Okay, so if you take a rocket and you fire it off the face of the earth, it goes up and it comes back down. And that comes back down because of gravity. If you take the rocket up and you shoot it a little faster, it takes a little longer to come back down. It still comes down because of gravity. If you take the rocket and you shoot it up so that it goes fast enough so that as it falls, it's falling. An orbit is simply falling back to the Earth. And if it's going fast enough so that it doesn't hit the Earth, it just keeps going. I mean, it's possible, right, to shoot a bullet fast enough that it just keeps going straight. And going straight means it's in orbit around the Earth. That's why it's weightless. It's like going up in a plane and then dropping the plane down like this, and it's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, or with a parachute that's not open. You're weightless. Okay? That's what orbiting is. Cool? All right. So you're going, uh-oh. Now this isn't the technical stuff I was talking about. Okay, so here is, this is going to blow your mind. And then you're going to have to go back and look it up and see if I'm fibbing. I'm not fibbing. I'm telling you the truth. This is real physics, guys. Here is a record. What part of the record goes faster and what part of the record goes slower? A record spinning at 33 1/3 RPM.
I want to say the inside.
The inside's going slower or faster?
Slower.
Why is it going slower? Okay.
I think it's going faster. Yeah.
I mean, what are we, like, relative to what?
It is relative to, it's all about relativity. But if we have a point here, if we have a point here and a point here, and this is spinning at 33 1/3 RPM, then that is, it spins 33 1/3 times every minute. That means that this point will go around 33 1/3 times every minute. And it means that this point will go around 33 1/3 times every minute. Which point is moving faster? They're not moving the same speed.
Oh, because the point on the inside covers less distance.
Exactly. This is just covering about an inch, and this is covering about 28 inches in the same period of time. So this has to be hauling to keep up with this. Do you see? You see it? Okay. Einstein is the guy who figured out that it is relative, and he said the faster you go, the slower time runs. The outside of the record ages more slowly than the inside of the record. But it's so infinitesimally small that there's no way you're going to measure it. But there is a way to do this experiment. So Einstein said, and it has since been proven, that speed of light is a constant, and the faster you get, the farther you get closer to the speed of light, the slower time runs. And if you get to the speed of light, it stops. Okay? Now, I didn't design this, God did. And I'm sure he designed it for a purpose. So, you don't really notice it until, if you're going half the speed of light, you start to notice it. Which means that if you have the Earth, and you send Major Tom up, right? Song, Major Tom. And you send a Major Tom up, astronaut, and he circles the Earth at the speed of light, at half the speed of light. And he's up there for a year. When Major Tom comes back down, a year has passed for us, or maybe a year has passed for Major Tom, but 20 years has passed for us. That's relativity. That's Einstein. Okay, well, how would you test something like that? Well, they have. They took 2 atomic clocks, they put one on the ground, they put the other one in a supersonic jumbo jet, they synced them so that they were perfectly aligned, and they flew this guy all the way around the world, and then they compared the clocks. And this clock was slower by exactly what it should have been based on Einstein's equation. And that's the farthest we've been able to test it. So time slows down the faster you go. But if you're the person that's going fast, it's all relative. Time doesn't seem slower to you. If Major Tom goes up and circles for a year, he's just noticed that a year's gone by.
Mm-hmm.
But when he comes back, we're 20 years older. Okay? All right. That's relativity. Okay. So time is not constant. Cool, huh? Just what you wanted to. Okay. Back to class.
I actually wanted to be a science teacher, so that gets
Okay.
interesting.
All right. Yeah. It's very. You drop a pin, the Earth jumps up to meet it. You know that, right? Because all objects attract. That's why the moon is in orbit around the Earth. It's because they both attract each other. But the larger the object moves, the less. It's all. The smaller object moves more. The larger object moves less. Okay. So no matter what you have, if you have 2 objects, and that's why this drops. If I were dropping the Earth on the Earth, they would circle instead. They go into orbit. But this is small enough versus the Earth that's the traction. Okay. So time is what allows us to have music. Time is what allows us to have jokes. Time is what allows us to have stories. Because stories unfold, and the thing that makes a story work is that you have parts to a story, the beginning, the middle, and the end. A joke, you set the joke up, you have the punchline. Music, you have notes occurring in time, and the notes happen in such a way that it causes emotional responses in the listener. That's what makes music work. Ultimately, music, Western music, which is what we're talking about, is based on a series of 8 tones, scales on 8 tones. There's 11 notes possible, and then the 12th note repeats. So you can have a chromatic scale and have 11 notes with the 12th note repeating. The 7 notes make a scale. Key of C, C, D, right? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C, and C is an octave. So the combination of those notes cause certain kinds of responses in us. The na-na sound is not specific to Western music. It's in all cultures. The na-na sound is a descending minor third. Na-na, 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 na. That sound is in all cultures. Then there's other parts of our music that aren't. Our scales are based on whole and half steps. I won't even get into even temper tuning and why the piano is out of tune, right? Even temper tuning, the piano is not tuned correctly. But that's what we're used to, and so we hear this out of tune music and guitars. Everything that we do in Western music, because of J.S. Bach, is slightly out of tune, and it's out of tune because we temper our tuning.
Where should it be at? So it's at 440 for guitar. Where should it?
Now, if we set A at 440, then everything else should be tuned off that. But we don't tune. There is tuning that happens based on the overtone series, and that's how we used to tune. That's Pythagorean tuning. That's how we used to tune. Music used to be in tune up until about 1700. Music was in tune until about 1700. Now when you listen to music played on early instruments, it will sound out of tune. It used to be in tune, it's not in tune anymore, because that way we can move through keys. We're not going to, okay, I don't want to get too technical. Is this making sense to you? Okay, good. She understands.
History.
Okay, you've had it, so you know. So she's going, yes, okay, I understand. It's weird, but it's okay. If you haven't heard it before, it's like, hey, time can speed up, or time can slow down. We can't, we can, okay, it's relative. It is relative. But we can take advantage of this, and because of the way music works, let's see. Right. You go crazy if I don't finish it. You notice how you want to finish it? Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going between a 1 chord and a 5 chord. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a
Dream.
And all of a sudden, we're unsettled because we haven't resolved it. So resolve is that process of being in a key, moving away. It's Dorothy saying, I want to go home. She's clicking her heels together 3 times, saying, I want to go home, I want to go back to Kansas, I want to go home. Music works because kind of asks a question. It's the same thing when we talk, and then we answer.
It's all relative to the starting note.
Yes, absolutely. And what we do to that starting note. So if this is a starting note, and I put this chord with it, that note becomes tonic. But if I take the same note, and I do this to it, all of a sudden it's in a different key. So C is only tonic when it's in the key of C. If I move to another key, C takes on some other aspect of being. Okay? So when we're talking about different pitches, and we won't get fully into this discussion, it's just to say that all pitches within a scale are not created equal. Some are home base, I'm in the key of C, some are home base, and some move us away that want to be resolved back to, okay? So it doesn't matter the key. If I play this note, and then I play this note, these notes, that creates tension that wants to resolve. This creates tension and unrest, and this allows everything to come to rest. Do you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
All of our songs that we do in a church service are based on that.
We suspend chords too.
And we can suspend chords. We can do this. We can do, which creates tension and resolve. Okay, it's a suspension. Okay. Row, row, row your boat, merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. Okay, so certain sets of pitches create tension, certain sets of pitches create rest. Circle of fifths serves us several ways. A circle of fifths lines up. We're back to the world here. Now, here we go. So here's a key of C. C has how many sharps and flats?
None.
0. And what comes after the key of C?
G.
Okay, key of C is G, and that has 1 sharp.
It's F sharp.
Okay, F sharp. And then after G we have
D.
D, and it has
C sharp and F sharp.
2 sharps. And it's all right if you're going like, I came in the wrong class. This is hanging in.
Yeah, no, C.
Oh, okay, good. And then after C, D comes
A.
A. Okay, so we'll put A right about here. Okay, A, and that's
3 sharps.
3 sharps. And then
A, C, D, F, G, E.
E. Okay.
4
And
sharps.
it's 4 sharps. So there's a pattern. There's a pattern that's going on here. Let's see. Let's put in. Let's put in. Next is
B.
B, and that's 5 sharps. And then we get down here. We're going to call this 6 sharps because we're okay. And that's going to be
F sharp.
F sharp, and what else?
Something
Is
flat.
it G flat?
Yeah, or G flat. Okay, in a harmonic. It's the same key, different letters. Okay. If we go this way, what happens? 1 flat.
F.
F is 1 flat, and then
B flat.
B flat is 2 flats, and then
E flat.
E flat. I lost the guitar player because guitar players don't play in flat keys, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like, it's like, wow, 3 flats. Yeah, it's just exactly what you. And what is that?
E flat.
E flat. And then we have 4 flats. What is it?
A flat.
A flat. And then we have 5 flats, which is
Is it D flat?
D flat. And yeah, let's do it. 6 flats.
The F. Oh, F flat would be the same thing as E sharp. Or E. Yeah, so it's E.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's go D flat. It is the same. So we'll go D flat, and let's call this C sharp also, because they're the same inharmonic spellings. Okay, so that brings us back to here. 5 flats or 6 flats or 6 sharps, actually. We'll go 6 flats or 6 sharps, right? They're in harmonic spellings. Now, when you move this way, this is what you're going to use for modulations. The closest key for modulation is always the key that is either the relative major or minor of that key. So if you're in the key of C, okay, you can be in this key of C. Back to A minor, because they're the same key signature. They have the same number of sharps and flats. It's just one's major, one's minor. We move quickly. It doesn't take much. It's not jarring to a listener to go from C major to A minor, or to go from any major key to its relative minor.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key that is the same key signature. It's just the sad key as opposed to the happy key, right? Major versus minor. The next easiest modulation to make is what?
Go up a third.
Like the parallel major to minor, so like from C major
Or a
to
walk
C
down or
minor.
something.
You could do walk down, but I'm thinking just in terms of keys. You could do this. You could be in a minor key and go to a parallel major. You could do that. That's kind of rough though, because you're jumping around the circle of fifths. The thing that makes the circle of fifths so cool is that the easiest places to modulate to are the keys closest to the keys you're in. If I'm in the key of C, it's easy to modulate to G or to F, because I only have to add a sharp or add a flat to get there. If you go this way around the circle of fifths, you build tension. Now this is where it gets critical, okay? When you go this way around the circle of fifths, it builds tension. When you go this way around the circle of fifths, it builds repose. And the reason that is because of the fifth. We hear that, no matter where I do it, we hear that as 5-1, right? No matter where I do those two pitches, well, that doesn't work. How about that? Does work. That's 5-1. So anytime I go 5-1, I hear that as repose. The brain picks that up. The same thing in keys. If I go from the key of C I hear it as repose. I just went from the key of C to the key of F. I went that way down the circle of fifths. But if I'm in the key of C, I moved away by a fifth. Now I'm in the key of G, and that creates more. We hear it more as tension. Now, not dramatically. If I prepared it well. Now let's do this. And so we cadence in G, but when I say that it creates tension, it brightens up the mood. So if I'm doing some songs on a Sunday morning, and I'm doing a set of songs about maybe I'll do this. Okay. Christ be in my waking at the in my day of working with me every hour. Christ be in my calling and okay, so I'm doing Christ be in my waking, which you may or may not know. And so da 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 da. Yeah.
For some reason, after you did that, I would hear go to E minor and then do F G C. I don't know why.
If yeah, that's actually the chord in the thing. So, but if I want to start, if I want that song can be an upbeat song, it can be a downer, or a more subdued song. But if I want to start the service with that, calming and refreshing, what you do the night. Praises rising, da 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 da. You know, da 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 da. Waiting, but I'm not strumming, but da da. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone from this da 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 da, and then praises rise. I went this way on circle of fifths. I was in the key of C, and I went to the circle of fifths. Now it might be better. Maybe it's better to do this. Walking through the night, worthy is the, and go into Revelation song in the key of F. Worthy is the, and what that does is it causes a calming effect. Because now I'm going this way in the key of circle of fifths. Make sense? So when you're modulating, okay, this last Sunday, let me give you an idea. This last Sunday at church, I didn't want to do anything with anything crazy key-wise. So I started out with, blessed be the name. Oh, for 1,000 times through the blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. And I did static modulation up a half step. I'm not a piano player, so. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And then blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Then I had the drummer go. Blessed be your name, the land and the land that is plentiful. I'll get the right keys. Blessed be your name. Okay, so I went right from blessed be the name to blessed be your name and stayed in the key. I went up half step and then stayed in the key of A. Okay? That was transitions. I'm conscious about that when I'm doing my worship plan. I want to know what key I'm in, what key I'm going to, and why I'm going to that key. Because I can kick it up a notch or I can kick it down a notch. If I've done two upbeat songs in a row and then I want to do something quieter, I'll go that way in the circle of fifths. If, on the other hand, it's a Sunday morning and it's raining out, well, usually I plan like 3 or 4 days. I finalize everything in 3 or 4 days for the service. If I'm trying to get people more engaged in what's going on, or maybe I set a mood with the song, maybe I start with a hymn. And I want to brighten it up, and I want to cause a little more excitement, because excitement and tension feel the same way in a body. And to cause a little more excitement, what am I going to do? If I'm in the key of C, I'm going to modulate to something in the key of G.
Yeah.
Okay? You with me?
Mm-hmm.
That's modulations, all right? I can modulate. We've covered most of it. And I can modulate from major to relative minor. As Mariah said, I can go from major to parallel minor. That's another way to do it. Parallel minor is the same beginning tonic with a completely different key signature. Okay, so if I'm in the key of G major, what is which is 1 sharp, what is the parallel minor?
E minor.
I'm sorry,
I know
parallel
relative is E.
Relative is E.
relative.
So it'd be B minor. Would it be B minor?
No, the parallel is just G minor.
Yeah, parallel is G minor.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and what is
So
the key signature of G minor?
Okay. Or the what? Say it again.
The key signature of G minor.
2 flats.
It's 2 flats. Okay, so you got to have a keyboardist or somebody who knows what they're doing to get from 1 sharp to 2 flats. We don't hear it going from 1 sharp to 2 flats. We hear it skipping around on here. 1 sharp to 2 flats. We're moving 3 keys over. You see it? This is very doable if you set it up properly. Okay, so I won't go into the music modulations behind that. I'm just saying that these are ways to modulate.
I can always get the majors, but I struggle with understanding how many flats minors have. Or
The minor is a minor third below the major.
Mhm.
Okay, so if I'm in the key of C, a minor third below C is
it's going to be A.
A.
Yeah.
A. If it's A flat, what would the C, what kind of C would that have to be? That's how we hear it. But, I mean, theory-wise, it's got to be C flat, which is the same as the key of D. Okay? They're inharmonically, sound-wise, they sound the same pitches. You just have different letters. I don't want to get too crazy on this. If you haven't had music theory, this goes, ah. Okay, so, it's a minor third away.
Okay.
All right, so you can get there easily going one key over. Going 2 keys over takes a little more work. All right. Questions? Now, when you do your services for next week, and you're going to go back and massage them a little bit and get them ready. Don't just pick songs and plug them in and not pay attention to keys. I'll expect less from guys that don't have degrees in music and more from ladies who do have degrees in music, because you know better. And so come up with some. Now, you don't always have to change key. If I'm doing a 3-song set, I will often do all 3 songs in the same key, especially if I have a group of people playing with me that aren't as musically astute as, I wouldn't say I have an A team and a B team. I would just say that I have some people who are musically, you throw anything at them and they're fine, and other people that I work with who don't read music. So you don't want to get, so there are Sundays when I purposely tone down interesting stuff that I'm doing with the music. Sometimes I'm the only person who appreciates it. So, but normally what I'm keeping in mind is am I raising the energy level of the body? How do I raise the energy level?
You go up a fifth.
I go that way. And how do I give the body a sense of peace? Let's say I'm doing a set of songs and I decide to do Peace Like a River. I start out, when peace like a river attendeth my soul, yeah, it is well with my soul. And then I go to what Chris Tomlin did one, right? Be still. Be still.
Be still, there is a healer.
Okay.
Is that
So
what yours
yeah,
is?
and so if I want to go to something like Be Still, There is a Healer, and I want people to be still, I go this way on the circle of fifths, and they actually, it allows people, now that sounds manipulative, I know, but why would I want to purposely go this way on the circle of fifths when what I'm trying to do is allow people to relax a little bit and relax in God and know that He is who He is, and He does what He says He's going to do. That makes sense. Okay, now this is kind of advanced, maybe, stuff. But if you're aware that keys actually affect how the music's being ingested in your body, then you know that if you don't pay attention to keys at all, you end up with, okay, let me go back. This Sunday, last Sunday, I did 3 songs, and I did them all in the key of A. And my transition was easy. I went right into the next song. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, the land that is plentiful. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Another song, right? Everlasting God. So all 3 of them ended up being a medley. I know for Graceway, that's like, this is all old school stuff. I mean, some of these songs are like 20 years old. But the point is that for the body, and then I got done and the body came, and it was one of those Sundays where people came up and said, what a great set of songs. Oh, they just flowed so well together. Yeah, well, it's in the same key. I never changed keys. You can't do that every Sunday because it gets monotonous. Okay? But if I know, if I can get songs that are similar in character, and I put them in the same key, it turns into a little medley. If, on the other hand, I'm doing a, let's say I'm doing, we do a Getty song called we will stand as children of the promise, we will lift our eyes to Him.
The Lord is our salvation.
We do by faith. By faith, that's the name of the song. We walk by faith and not by sight. Well, it's almost militant. And the drummer goes, dun 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 dun. And it's a great song, and people love to sing it, and it's march tempo, and it's perfect if I'm coming from another song that sets up that song. So I use one song to set up the next song. I use this key to set up this key. I might have a Sunday where I go from the key of C to the key of G and then stay in the key of G. I might have a Sunday where I start in the key of G and I go to the key of G, and then I've got a song that I want to bring people down on a bit, and I go to the key of, I go backwards, so I go to the key of C. Okay? Wherever. If I start here, that way is backwards, right? And that way is forward. So it's all relative to where, you don't have to start on key of C. Does it make sense? So how might you, with what you know about music theory, how might you apply picking out key signatures for your music?
Well, I would want to make sure that it's within a congregational range.
Okay.
So it's between B flat and then the E4 probably. So
Yeah, B flat, you could say E, D is E starts to get a little high.
Yeah.
E gets into something called a passaggio for most folks, the place where the voice lifts. So maybe a B flat to a D. Maybe if you're getting a good run at it, to the E and you're not on it for very long, E and F works, but you don't want to be up there very long. You just want to touch and come back.
I think last week when I lived Build My Life, I touched that E.
And that works. Yeah. So, okay, how else might you use keys? Okay, let me give you more ideas on keys. If I want to build a set, like I did last Sunday, and I want it unified, I've got a single idea going through all three songs. Okay, a theme. Okay, we talked about thematic versus liturgical versus emotional kinds of stuff. If I want to go through and I want to magnify a theme that goes through all three songs, I may not modulate at all, or I may only move one of the songs one place on the circle of fifths. On the other hand, if I'm doing three songs and I want to start the service with a hymn that we haven't done for a while, and I'm trying to focus attention on the hymn, and the hymn is in B flat, okay? And the hymn doesn't really connect directly to the other two songs I'm doing. Then I might do the hymn in B flat and do the next song in G. Now, why would I do the next song in G?
So they're more disconnected.
There's more disconnected. I purposely disconnected those two songs by using distant key relationships. Okay? Now they're already distant, let's say. I'm trying not to pull them together. They're already distant, but I want to reinforce that. Now the person sitting out in the audience, out in the congregation, is not saying, I think he just moved 4 keys over on the circle of fifths. Nobody is saying that. Okay? They do not understand it. They only feel it. They only sense it. Okay, makes sense? So what I'm doing with keys matters. If you don't understand key relationships and you don't pick out music for your church services, then this is a half hour of enlightenment, and now you know that time actually ebbs and flows, and because you thought it was constant and it isn't. I'm sure that actually probably just scared you. Now, on the other hand, if you are a musician and you're going to do this for a living, it's a good idea. If you don't pay attention to keys, you can still do this for a living. But if you understand how keys work, you can add another layer to what you're doing with your leading that supports what it is you're trying to accomplish with the theme of the worship. I can take two independent ideas about God, let's say God's goodness and God's mercy, and I can bring them together how?
By the in-between, which is,
One song about his goodness and one song about his mercy.
and then maybe something to kind of tie it together.
Okay, so what I can do is I can take those two songs and pull them together, and I can do that. Maybe I could, there's a couple ways to do it. I could transition, I could stop this song and say, isn't God great and good? Yes, oh, everybody agrees, yes, yeah, good. You know, he's also a merciful God. In this next song, okay, so I could do that. I could actually say something. Or I could have two songs that had similar kinds of tempos and just put them in the same key. And go from this song to this song straight away. Like, if I go from Blessed Be the Name, an old hymn, to Blessed Be Your Name, was that Matt Redman? Blessed Be Your Name. And I go to Blessed Be Your Name, do you see some kind of unity in thought between those two songs?
How does Blessed Be the Name go again?
Oh, for 1,000 tongues to
yeah.
blessed be the name of the Lord. Okay, His Gloria, da 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 da. Blessed be the name. Blessed be the name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name. Okay, and then we go to Blessed be Your name. Do you see any kind of connection between those two songs?
None at all.
Yeah. Both
Okay,
proclaiming
good.
His name.
Good. Okay, so you guys are good. So I ask an obvious question, I get an obvious answer. Okay, so they are clearly talking about, I mean, it's the same subject, right? But they are
Two different tempos.
and they're two different generations in our church. And what have I just done by putting those two together?
Connected. Oh, you connected the congregation to more blended.
Exactly. I connected the old people to the young people. Okay? Because we're both, okay, wow. So they both got to sing about blessing God, or blessed be the name of the Lord. And then this one started out by blessed be the name, where we're singing about God. And then we moved that to blessed be your name, singing to God. So it was this way focused, and then it becomes this way focused. So all sorts of things happen by making those shifts. Okay?
So crazy idea. How to combine those.
Yeah.
So the song stops, and then we had a drummer do.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Okay, so now, transition. So we've talked about modulations. Yes.
Coffee break.
Yes, and I was going to say, we've talked about transitions. And I was going to say, and we've talked about modulations. We will talk about transitions, and I was going to say after the break. You stole my thunder. That's all right. Let's see. If anybody is still listening, actually. Let's get back here at about 15 minutes. I've got 7:28. It'll be 7:28 on my. Sound good? Is this at all interesting? I mean,
Yes,
is it-
because I've actually had some experience leading worship, and I enjoy music, so
Yeah.
this is
And,
kind
and
of piecemeal it together.
right now, and that's why, and I think I said the first day of class, I can sit down in front of a congregation and manipulate them. I can manipulate. As a matter of fact, a good musician who knows what they're doing, an atheist can sit down in front of a congregation and manipulate them into experiencing something that they think is profound. And you can do it by manipulating the music, which I avoid. On the other hand, there are profound things about God that we want to engage people in as they worship. And if I can support the ideas, if I can support unity in the body by putting blessed be the name and blessed be your name together, if I can support unity in the body, I don't think that's manipulation. I think that's helping the body experience something together. Okay? If I can create excitement about a song by moving to a key this way on the circle of fifths, knowing that by doing that, it'll cause people to engage, it brightens the song and it causes people to engage a little more deeply in it. I think that's where it's the same thing if you're teaching and you're in the pulpit and you hit some theme and you go into the Bible thumping mode and your voice goes higher and your pace gets faster and everybody's with you and they're all it's the same thing that happens. You take people up the mountain to meet God. And if this helps, then we use it for that. Not to manipulate, but to touch on the very humanness of who we are and to use music in the way that it works, the way God has us designed to respond to music. Okay, be back 7:30. Okay, I've got 7:50. Oh, you guys are so polite. If you have to go, get coffee or whatever, go for it. Back in 15 minutes. I got through this. Nobody fell asleep, so that's.
No, I've had some experience leading worship.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy music a lot.
Good.
I'm constantly
And
humming
there-
songs in my head.
And what's cool about the guitar is that the first three keys, the first four keys this way are all guitar keys.
Yeah.
And so if you know that, you can do a ton of stuff with four keys.
Yeah.
You go in all sorts of different directions, all sorts of different keys.
And the reason I picked the keys that I did were they're very similar keys.
Right.
I could just transition right into it.
Exactly.
And I normally either pick G, A, or D, or something
Exactly.
along those lines.
Exactly. And if you stay with those keys, it transitions.
But I do have a cool idea for how to transition between those two songs. So you have blessed be the name of the Lord, and then with a drum in the back, and then it kind of transitions.
Yeah, that would I'd actually use that. Drumming,
What's that called?
well, what I would do is the snare is that kind of so the term, which I'll Ah. Coffee, huh? What do you do when you have a 3-hour class at night? When you did
Pray.
music? Huh?
You pray
You pray?
that you stay awake.
Oh, you pray that you stay awake. I was gonna say.
Or you hope that it's a discussion-based class.
Mm-hmm. Like this.
Okay, so let me rephrase it. So you're meeting, let's say, from 6 to 9 for, you've already had a worship lit. Did you break once or twice?
Once.
For how long?
About 15 minutes.
Okay.
Some classes do, like, they'll break twice for 10 minutes. Or
Okay, because I was thinking of doing twice for 10 minutes. And have you guys had evening classes for 3 hours?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do for your evening
I
classes?
usually had 2 breaks.
Like 10 minutes, 2 10-minute breaks?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just kind of depend on the class. So I've had one in the middle and
Yeah.
Dr. Smith
2
would have 2 breaks, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking a 3-hour lecture would be, that would be a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're in worship,
that's what it's called.
worship literature. That was a discussion class, right? Yeah, okay. All right. Transitions. We've talked about modulations. Now we're going to talk about transitions. Before we do, I just got an email from one of my congregants. Nice man, great guy. But these kinds of emails are always done in such a way to be somewhat accusatory. So I'm going to share it with you. Just got it, and the email says, Tom, are you aware of the controversies surrounding Hillsong and Bethel music?
Oh, no.
Now, how about that for a loaded question?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't,
Pass this.
because, how do I answer that? Okay. Now, how I answered it was very simple. I put yes with an exclamation point. Because I didn't want to get into a discussion with it. I certainly don't want to get in a discussion with it on email. I'm glad to talk to him at church, but it's like the question, are you still beating your dog? You know, and you don't have a dog. It's like, because the next thing he's going to want to say is, then why are we doing some of their music? So he's going to assume that since I know about the controversy, then why would I do anything from Hillsong? So, we talked a little bit about this, yeah? Maybe we haven't talked about it. Let's talk about Hillsong real quick. Hillsong and Bethel music. Because we have talked about it in chapel, right?
Talk about it a lot.
In chapel?
In chapel,
Just on
in
campus?
school, on campus.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I am going to say this at the beginning of the discussion. You have to decide where you draw the line. Okay? So let's, for the edification and the sharpening of all of us, where do you draw the line? You start.
Oh boy.
Because you are, I can see, man,
Oh boy.
you're primed.
Well, we need to weigh a song by its lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the stuff that they produced 10 years ago, 12 years ago are decent. They weren't quite as stooped into it as Bethel is, probably. I would probably lean more towards Hillsong than I do Bethel,
Mhm.
just because of all the controversies behind the school that they do with the children. They literally have a school
Tell-
dedicated to casting people out.
Yeah, tell us exactly what it is that you're talking about, so in case somebody's listening and they don't know what you're.
Sure, I'm referencing a book by Anthony Wood called Deception, and he and Costi Hinn have looked into this, and you can find it on the internet. There's a lot of controversy surrounding Bethel Church. They believe in signs and wonders and casting people out in the third eye and glory clouds happening in their service and feathers coming down from the air ducts and you
Yeah.
name it.
Yeah.
They preach a false gospel in my mind.
Yeah.
I refuse to listen to Bethel music.
Okay.
Some of the Hillsong stuff from back 10, 15 years ago I will listen to,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not listen to any of the recent music.
Yep.
So that's where I stand.
Okay. Other comments?
I rate a song by its lyrics and not by its writers, so there's a lot of Bethel music. Most of Bethel music, actually, I'm fine with. I'm totally okay with it. I don't see a problem with singing it. I wouldn't have any convictions about bringing it before a congregation,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think controversy is something you should be afraid of in a church.
I agree with that. I don't think we should be afraid of controversy.
Yeah.
But it's,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm along the similar lines as that, as long as the song is
Well,
theological.
similar lines.
As Mariah, just as long
okay.
as the
So
song
I'm going to
is-
say they're in different places.
Yeah, no, as long as
Yeah.
the song is theologically accurate, and
Okay.
there's no, problems with it's not causing,
No.
major dissension. I think.
Okay. Let me ask some questions. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it may be theologically accurate, and that's how they wrote people into it. It may be theologically, see, I agree with you guys, we should weigh a song by what it says. And it might seem theologically accurate, it might be. But that's how they kind of dupe people into believing what they believe.
Mhm.
And if they're starting with the wrong presupposition of Scripture, then we need to check out what they say. Because
Okay.
they're talking about a false Jesus. They're talking about a false gospel.
Okay.
Because of what they truly believe when it comes down to the core tenets of their statement of faith.
Okay.
So that's kind of
Good. Well, I'm going to have questions for all of you then. Okay. So let me ask. And I'm not taking a side at least yet, but let me ask this question. I'll start with you. Okay. If somebody has a false doctrine, does that automatically mean that we shouldn't use their music? Where do you draw the line?
yeah. So I think personally, if their music is theologically accurate, the problem is if people start listening to their music, then they'll start researching the website and they'll start supporting what they do.
Okay.
Even if the song may be theologically accurate, I would not advise them to be listening to their music because they'll start researching it, especially for new believers.
Mm-hmm.
For new believers that are influenced very easily.
Okay.
And I personally just draw the line in my life not to listen to the music. To be
Okay.
above reproach and so
All right.
consistent.
Okay.
So I don't want to be contradicting what I say.
Well, there's so many songs out there. It's not like if you choose not to do a song, it's not like you're going to have a hole in your service. There's plenty of other.
No, and I also don't want to go to the extreme of the fact that a believer may listen to it and automatically they listen to a Bethel song and they're a heretic. I think that's wrong. That's jumping to an extreme.
Okay.
But I would advise Christians to be careful and screen what they're listening to, and
Yeah, even-
screen where it's coming from too.
Yeah. Even though I would say this in a worship service in a church, if people are already listening to a radio or listening to radio or recordings, they already know Bethel music's music. If they're doing it in a church and they have no idea who Bethel is, they wouldn't know one way or the other. So if whatever they know about Bethel, they're probably not going to figure it out from a worship service. They're probably going to figure it out because they listen to a radio station that plays it. But what would you do about, then would you would you say that, and I'll play devil's advocate here. So would you say that all things with questionable doctrine, then, whether is it just music, or would you apply that to books?
I think it applies to books too.
Everything?
Mm-hmm.
So Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel?
Okay, so there's a fine line.
Okay, because
Um,
he's gay.
Sure.
Or how about Martin Luther, Mighty Fortress is Our God, which is a great hymn. He also wrote one called All the Jews Should Be Gathered Together and Burned in a Little Pile. I mean, it's horrible, horrible lyrics. That isn't quite the title of it. Martin Luther was vehemently anti-Jewish. I mean, it was really horrible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, or that and I think we talked about this, or that, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate, and then you get your turn.
Mm-hmm.
Something like, "O Holy Night." The song "O Holy Night" we do at Christmas time. We do it in churches. Was written. Of course, the poem was written by. The poem was written by the town vintner, who had stopped going to church and is basically a drinker. He had nothing had nothing to do with the Catholics in this town, French town. And he wrote the lyrics because the pastor came to him, because he was a poet, said, "Would you write us a song for Christmas?" So he wrote the lyrics, came up with "O Holy Night." And then for the music, he went to his buddy who was Jewish, and the Jewish guy wrote the music to "O Holy Night." It was a big hit in the church for about 5 or 10 years, until they figured out who had composed it, and then they banned it.
Yeah.
They banned the song, and it was like 100 years later that the song came back, translated, and now it's done all over. So I'm just, again, I'm saying, I'm not arguing that I don't want to change your convictions. I'm just, people will argue these points with
Yeah,
you.
and that's a great point. That's something I probably do need to consider, is some of the other songs maybe I haven't researched, and if I want to be consistent, if I have drawn a fine line on that,
Yeah,
then I need to be consistent on the other things as well.
because then I need to start asking you questions like, do you go to the movies?
Sure.
Yikes. I mean,
So I think
that's now we're way out of
so.
whack.
I think there is a fine line.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll backtrack. I don't apply to everything.
Okay.
It's just when it comes to scripture, books,
Right.
certain music.
Okay. But like I say, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Not where I shop. Well, some things are where I shop, but that's like
Where
I
you-
won't shop at Dick's Sporting Goods because they support LGBTQ. So.
Oh, I won't shop at Dick's because they got rid of the guns.
And they have terrible quality.
I'm an
stuff.
NRA member, so don't, yeah. Now, wait, okay, shopping.
Oh boy. I don't think
So, Bethel. When you do Bethel music, there's money being paid to Bethel when you do their
So you
music
support it.
through CCLI. So, do you feel comfortable supporting a ministry like Bethel if they have strong heretical teachings?
Something that working with Jeremy and Pastor Brandon at Graceway has really helped me, like in my personal convictions, thinking about open-handed and closed-handed issues.
Mm-hmm.
And closed-handed issues are what makes us believers. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, died on the cross and rose again 3 days later, and we have eternal security in Him. And
Those are
that's
important.
closed-handed issues. And
Or primary, secondary issues.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really, I don't know, I'm not in a place where I particularly care too much that Bethel has some weird doctrine
Mhm.
because they're believers.
Again, and that, like I say, I'm asking you both hard questions because people will ask those questions. Okay. I mean, so you, and how do you,
I mean, I'm not a big fan of that. I think it depends.
do you feel comfortable if you're pastoring a church that your music guy is doing songs from Bethel and the CCL license is sending money every month to Bethel directly because you're doing those songs in your church?
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not
Putting
accusing
it
you of anything.
in that.
I'm just asking you
Yeah,
to think through the
I don't.
issue.
I'm not super comfortable with that. I need to look into more
Okay.
what they all do and stuff. But yeah, I think when you look at it from the money perspective, I think it is a little more like you're directly supporting them, perhaps, and stuff like that, and how. So I think I need to look into more of how that all
Okay.
works and
Yep.
what they're getting from it and stuff.
And then I can tell you what
Yeah.
the school's position.
I also want to clarify. I respect what Mariah believes and what Sam believes, and I think we can worship with people that go to Bethel because there are some believers. I'm just talking about the head honchos
Yeah.
at Bethel are confused. I'm not saying they're not believers. They're just stooped in false doctrine.
Would you say that they may be? They
And
may
for
be-
sake of not causing division, I don't really necessarily want to make an incredible stink here at Calvary over it because I want to focus on the essentials.
Yeah. Okay.
Christ
good.
was raised on the third day, rose again.
Absolutely.
And I think,
And I agree with you. Except in a class like this, we have to deal with this.
sure.
So because we deal with it every year as a department.
But I just want to clarify. I don't think of you guys any different because you listen to Bethel music or anything like that.
Okay. And do you think of him any differently because he?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Well. Okay. Well, one out. That's good. That's not bad odds. Okay. So I can tell you that all of our music.
You know I'm joking, right?
Oh
Okay.
no, I know you.
Now, Dr. Cohn, do you believe Dr. Cohn is on top of the stuff that's going on at Bethel? And
I mean, that's
Sure.
why you had Anthony Wood come in.
absolutely. Okay, Dr. Cohn understands the issues. Dr. Cohn's feeling on the music is that he looks specifically at the text
Mhm.
and sees if it's right or wrong. He is a stickler about doctrine. I've seen. And Dr. Cohn proves every song we do in chapel. I don't know if you know that. All music goes to me. I'm sorry, let me backtrack. When I was department chair, I'm no longer department chair. I stopped being department chair last May. When I was department chair, Jeremy would put together a list of all the songs he planned to do in chapel. He would send the list to me. I would vet it. If I had any issues, and occasionally I did, with the song that he had chosen, I would ask him about it, suggest perhaps it might or might not be. I mean, it wasn't very often because Jeremy and I are pretty much on the same wavelength doctrinally. And then we would prepare the list and Jeremy would send it to Dr. Cohn. Dr. Cohn, who had a completely different set of criteria that he was applying to the music. Not completely different, I don't want to say it that way. A different level of fine-tooth doctrinal. He would come back and say, I have a problem with this song because of this doctrinal position. And I would read his notes and go, wow. I mean, that is really, it would have been lost on everybody probably in the room except for Dr. Cohn and maybe two, Bible theologians. But we go, great, get that out of there, we'll put something else in. So every piece of music that happens in chapel has been vetted by 3 people, or had been. I don't know how it works. I'm assuming Unchung Christopher does the same thing now.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. So Jeremy sends it to her, and then they send it on to Dr. Cohn. And I'm sure, and Unchung Christopher isn't nearly as concerned about doctrine on that level in the songs. She'll pick out, same thing. She'll pick out something that is errant. But there is, I think there's a point where teaching becomes so far off base that that the gospel is completely lost in that. Now, I think something like I think if you're teaching that Christ is not God, it's not deity, that Christ and Lucifer were brothers, which what's that, Mormons teach that, right? Is that the Mormons? Okay, that kind of stuff is just totally heretical, and it's pretty hard to Then you get into the charismatic stuff, where you have assemblies of God, perhaps on the conservative side of charismatic teachings, and then you have maybe IHOP and that ilk over, and maybe Bethel I'd put over there, which are not that they're in the same. They're not in the same theological camp. They're in the same theological quagmire. Okay, but at what point, what you call open hand, closed hand, what I would call majors and minors, at what point is the gospel lost? And I asked this class, what do you need to know to be saved? Was that this class I asked? Okay, so what do you need to know to be saved? And ultimately, you have to decide where you're going to draw the line, and then be consistent with that line.
Yeah.
I asked the question simply because I got the email today, and that email will turn into a discussion. That email will end up eventually in an elder's discussion. I'm an elder at the church, and I'll have to give an account for it. And I'll have to have the same discussion that we're having right now with the elders of the church who haven't even thought of it as an issue up to this point. But we have somebody in the body that's turning it into an issue. It will have to be dealt with. And then out of that discussion with the elders, we will come up with a policy that may change some of the music we do. It may not. We don't, look, we were doing Blessed Be the Name and Blessed Be Your Name on Sunday, so it's not like we're cutting edge on our music. So,
Do you mind if I add a little bit more?
Yeah.
Back into the whole Bethel thing, I read an article recently, and this happened a while back, maybe 2016. There were 2 college students that were hiking up into the mountains near the coast in California, and one of them fell down. Actually, there were 3. Their friend fell down a cliff, and they waited for hours and were just praying for the friend. And they could have called the ambulance, but they refused to because they expected that God would respond to their faith. God never did.
Well, God did.
Yeah, God did. He
The guy died, right?
Operate within what they wanted.
Yeah.
And the guy died and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
right.
the problem with the Bethel is they believe our measure of faith dictates how God is going to respond.
Sure.
And that's not completely scriptural.
Sure.
I mean, you see some aspects of that, but God is not dependent on what we do. So it almost turns into a works-based
Right.
ideology.
Yeah. God is all I have to do is name it and claim it.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it's a word of faith gospel.
Yeah, word of faith.
Oh.
So, yep, they have errant theology.
Yeah.
But I remember, and we talked about this. We talked about 60% of the world is Catholic, and then you take the 40% of the world that isn't Catholic, which is us. The biggest part of that is Protestant. We're still not in that group. We're not really Protestants.
Anabaptists.
Yeah, we're Anabaptists. Okay, so you've got, the church. 60% of the church is Catholic, and maybe another 35% of the church is Protestant, and then you go down to this 5% that's Anabaptist, and then we have issues with the rightly figuring out which of the camps that we're. Are we dispensationalists, new dispensationalists? Are we dispensationalists who believe this, dispensationalists who believe that? So, fortunately, at this point in my life, I can say with 100% certainty that all of my doctrine is correct, and anybody who doesn't agree with it is wrong. Because I know it. I know I'm right. Now, when I get to heaven, I think it'll be a different matter. And that's okay.
Because we can't completely understand.
Isn't that why we call them open-handed issues?
But I still, if my heart convicts me, now I don't want to get wishy-washy on sin, but God addresses, one brother believes this, and one brother counts this as sin, and this brother doesn't. We're allowed that. There's some latitude there. I think and again, I'm not here to praise Bethel or to say don't do Bethel. I'm not a big Bethel fan. And I would agree. I think Hillsong at the outset was good. I think Hillsong has tried to stay at the front edge of music direction. But there's enough heresy to go around. And the guy that wrote "Prone to Wander, Lord, prone to wander, Lord, prone to leave the God I love." He did. After he wrote that, he wandered. He left, and so he left Christianity. So it's fortunately, and that's why I think I believe in assurance of salvation as opposed to having to persevere, otherwise I lose my salvation. I believe in the assurance of salvation. I'm really glad that doctrine has been clarified, because the thought that somehow my salvation is dependent on my ability to keep it in place and to know everything that's right or whatever is scary. Because I'm as big a flake as every other human being I've ever known, and I've known a lot of human beings. So
Really appreciate what they had to say. When it comes down to it, it's the words. So how well did the words match up with Scripture? And I kind of think of Colossians 3:16, let the word of Christ richly dwell within you, admonishing everybody or teaching everybody with spiritual songs and hymns and that kind of thing. So it comes down to it.
yeah.
Is it from Scripture or is it from experience?
Well, and I think we can all
both.
Yeah, I think we can all agree, right? If there's errant theology in a song, pick another song.
Yeah.
Okay. But be prepared. I've been doing what I do long enough that people have pointed out errant theology in songs to me that we've been doing for years.
Mm-hmm.
Errant theology in hymnals that we have. So just be prepared, that'll happen. I even have songs where there's errant theology in the third verse, and so I only could do the first, second, and fourth verses because of the errant theology in the third verse. In a church where that hymn becomes important and part of the hymnody of the church, you just quietly say, I don't do the third verse because of this line. So it's a matter of, you had this discussion. First day of class, you told me about your dad. Got to meet that man sometime. So all I would say is I'm not here to tell you where to come down on the issue at all. This is an issue that you need to decide. It's an issue that you will deal with, whether you are in the pastorate or your worship pastor or your worship leader or you're involved in church at all. You will deal with these issues, and you will have to come up with a position on it. We have our position at Calvary doctrinally. Our doctrinal position at Calvary has not changed. I've been here for 10 years, and the doctrinal positions have not changed. The way we deal with music has. and it's dependent on the person in charge. And I'm not saying it was bad before and now it's good, or it was good before and now it's bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we deal with it differently. Okay? And wherever you work, and wherever you pastor, and wherever you lead worship, you ultimately have to serve the people that it's not your job. I mean, it's your job, but it's not your place to say, this is how I elect to carry out my ministry. I have to carry out the ministry based on what the elders or the leadership of the church say, and what is the best service to the body. And when you're at Graceway, you speak Graceway. And when you get your first job as a worship leader at whatever church, you follow the leadership there. And you do that unless somebody asks you to do something that actually violates your conscience. Then I would tell you, if it violates your conscience, don't change your conscience. Go to another church. Don't compromise your conscience. If you start doing that, then you start to get jaded and your conscience becomes scarred. And then you stop responding to sin. Yeah? So listen to that still small voice inside you. Understand that you may shift your view at some point, and it's okay. My shift, I had a dramatic shift in my understanding of the gospel that occurred maybe 12 years ago. And it was when I was confronted with the idea of free grace. And my idea of grace and how God operates around that grace shifted so profoundly that and I go to a Bible church. I mean, and my theology aligns perfectly with Calvary's theology. And yet I had a discussion with somebody who taught here who thought I might not be saved if I was a free gracer. I was a Bible teacher here. He no longer teaches Bible here. That's another issue. But there are a lot of guys who line up exactly with me here at Calvary in terms of free grace. Lots of people here. And then there are a couple that maybe you might be off a little bit. And then there's some that line up with me doctrinally, but they don't practice it. They don't show it in their lives. You see, so there's, praise God that within the grace He's shown us in salvation, that we're still allowed to be dingbat human beings who are still trying to figure out how to tie our shoes. Yes, Mariah ties her shoes. I was just, thank you, perfect cue as I was saying that before you tied your shoes. But please, tie your shoes, it's okay. But you understand, just these are issues you're going to have to deal with. Mm-hmm. If you're in church work, you're going to get, so anyway, I wanted to share that email with you. I thought it was fun. And it's not the first time he sent an email like that. So it will go to the elders. All right, so we talked about, now we want to talk about transitions. How do we transition? Just briefly, what are ways to transition between songs or between elements in a service? Because I'm going to want you to put some transitions in the services. The service that you bring in next week to lead, I want you to lead the whole service. We won't go all the way through it, but I want you to say, okay, at this point this would happen, and then it had this happen. What are ways to transition?
Sometimes if if the song is a really high energy song,
mm-hmm.
a lot of times the band will bash the last chord.
Mm-hmm. Like a stinger. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes Logan Brothers does this thing down in the youth groups where he always says like, lift up a shout of praise or something. And
And that becomes a transitional element. Okay, and what does that do?
it normally like energizes the crowd, like the congregation. And it works really well for like youth, especially.
It's like putting an exclamation point at the end of a. Okay, and so where might you use it? Give me specifics where you might use that.
Normally it's at the end of a higher energy song. So
Okay.
sometimes it could be like if it could be the first song, or it could be the last song.
Depending on what you're trying to do. Okay.
A lot of times if it's like a slower song, it might be the point where like the pastor comes up and prays, so there's like the prayer pad going on underneath, or something like that.
The prayer pad would be somebody at the keyboard playing chords, maybe with a setting of kind of violins, mushy, patty.
Or a
kinds
lot of
sound.
times, like if it's a long intro, the worship leader might say a few words about like the song that we're about to sing.
Okay. Okay, good. Other transitional kinds of things that we can do.
I mean, just like if you need to like move people around in the like, you can use prayer as kind of your
The classic prayer as a transitional element. Yeah, which we do. We start out with the way our service starts. The youth pastor, Pastor Jim, gets up and he welcomes everybody. They'll usually say, does anybody have a verse that God's shared with you that you want to share this week that God's used to speak to your heart? And somebody might share a verse, and that's great. And then he'll tie that verse into an opening prayer, and he'll go, let's pray. And let's pray is the cue for the musicians to get out of the front row, walk up on stage, grab their instruments. And so when Jim is done praying and he says amen, we are plugged in and ready to go. Otherwise, we have to sit there and watch that. Okay. We have first set, and then we have pastoral prayer, and then we have the second set of music. And during the pastoral prayer, we're doing the same thing. If the choir is going to do special music, they come up and get into their positions while the prayer is going on. Okay. So praying is a great time to move. It seems just utterly sacrilegious to get up and move while people are praying, and yet I don't know that I think every church I've ever worked in uses it as a transitional element. Okay, so you may have other feelings about it, but at least the church I work at, our feeling is that is a great place to transition. What other ways to transition?
I was thinking fellowship time. In our church, we have a song, and then after that, there's announcements, and then there's fellowship time.
Okay, and what do you do during fellowship time?
We just greet one another, and that's the church back home. That's Amazing Grace.
Okay, and what exactly? Tell me how that. Tell me what you're doing. Who does the transition? What is said, and then what happens?
So the worship pastor will say, "Now it's time for announcements," and Pastor Josh will come up and give the announcements, and then we'll have a fellowship time, and he'll initiate that. He'll say, 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
And then my dad will just say, okay, and then he'll start his service.
Okay,
He'll start the sermon.
All right. So so what that does is that gives him a chance. Is he's probably not up on stage, or is he up on stage before that happens?
No, he's talking with people.
Okay, so he's talking to people. All that happens, and he's shaking hands and everything, and then everybody's shaking hands and fellowshipping and starting long conversations, maybe if you let them. And then they see him make his way to the platform, and as soon as he's up on the platform, people automatically start to. We are so trained. We are all. There's an aspect. You do understand that as a human being, there's an aspect of you that is all animal, right? We are like the seals with balls on our noses, and we're balancing, and we respond to that. That's what we do. We sit in the same chairs every Sunday, right? Because we are creatures of habit. We are. There's parts. Yeah, we are. Part of us is animal. Okay. Okay, that's great. Great. More transition. Other ideas on transitions. How about transitions between songs? Okay, we talked about, that's cool. Nice shout out. Yeah, that's praise. Now, if I did that at my church, that would be the response. Let's all praise God. Shout praise.
I mean, that will still be like the transition a lot of times between songs. Because a lot of times the band needs a minute to like get ready for the next song.
For the next song. If somebody needs to put a capo
like,
on.
It's
or
almost just like a way to like give people something else to focus on while like someone's putting their capo on.
Okay, right. So you'll notice when I talked about this last Sunday, I was in the key of A all the way through all 3 songs, and I went song to song to song without a break. I could do that because they were all the same tempo and they were all the same key. If I'm working with a band and we go from the key of C to the key of F, because I have some songs we do that are in the key of F, drives whenever I do something, I've got a couple that are in the key of B flat. And whenever I'm in the key of B flat, the guy who plays guitar, who does not read music, always looks at me like, what are you doing to me? So, if he's going to do a capo, I have to give him, doesn't take long, but I have to give him 5 seconds or so to put that capo on. So I have to have some kind of transition. So what else can we do besides shouting and going straight through?
Offering.
Okay, you put an offering between songs. Well, how about within a set? So you've got 3 songs. What are ways to transition between songs?
What about like a video on the screen that talks about like a missions update?
Okay, that's all absolutely great transitional element, but within a worship set.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, within the set, going from song to song.
I would say, like.
And we talked about pads too. Do you understand what pads are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so pads are a great way to do it too, and a great way to modulate too.
Yeah, because the pianist doesn't ever have to put a capo
Right.
on. So sometimes you could just like use the pianist while the guitarists get ready.
Right. Okay. Other ways.
At home, occasionally, like the first song will be during the offering, and so at the end of that, we'll have people stand. And you start the song as they stand.
Okay. Good. How about talking?
Oh, like read a scripture verse.
Okay.
Between a song.
Great. I actually do that. I'll read a scripture verse. Sometimes I'll start a worship service by just reading scripture. Okay? All right. Or maybe I draw attention. I don't do this often at all. I very rarely do I talk when I'm leading. And because and here's my personal philosophy. Does Brandon talk much when he leads? Okay. Some people are really good at it. Some people aren't. If it's not really well done, it becomes distracting. And I've never seen, I need to come over and watch him lead. But I think, avoid just that Christianese that people, you know what Christianese is, right? A really great a worship pastor, and you don't have to speak between songs to be a great worship pastor, but a great worship, a person who has a great ability to connect songs through what they're saying between songs is great. It's just most people aren't, because what'll happen, what I found is that over the course of 4 or 5 months, you'll start to hear the same phrases over and over and over again, Christianese. You'll hear the same phrases over and over and over again. And it becomes this kind of canned, it almost becomes, I have to say something between songs because I'm a worship pastor and that's what's expected of me. And I'm giving you permission. If you feel you need to say something between songs, do it. And if you don't feel you have anything that don't talk just because you think you have to talk. Okay? I'm sure Jeremy has said that to you at some point. Don't talk just because you think you have to talk. But don't be afraid to say something if it makes sense within the context of the songs you're doing and the process of leading people.
This summer at Autumn Ridge, I felt like it would be appropriate on one of the songs to say something to transition from the one song to the next song.
Because it's a great way to transition.
Yeah, so I wrote it out on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I pretty much had it memorized, so I didn't have to look down. I made eye contact with the congregation. but I had it down on the paper so that it came across smoothly
Good,
and wasn't distracting.
right, right. Ultimately, don't draw attention to yourself. It's funny, you're up in the front leading, but you shouldn't be drawing attention to yourself or the process of what you're doing. You should be leading people, but you shouldn't be the focus of their worship,
Yeah.
right? Okay, see you next week. We need some, so next week you're gonna come in, you're gonna lead, you're gonna talk me through your service, talk us through your services with all the transitions, talk us through the, lead us a little bit with the music. I might have you start a song and then take us to the end of the song and then transition to the next song. Transition can be as simple as ending one song and starting the next song. That's a legitimate transition. You don't have to modulate. You don't have to do something special. Sometimes just ending a song and then starting another song is just plenty enough.
Is
Right.
it okay to because one of the issues with changing keys for songs in order to make them fit together better is sometimes the song needs to be in a certain key to remain singable.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a situation where it's just okay to transition?
Yes, it's a great question. Should you, because you have this idea, this great musical idea, and you think, what I want to do is go from this song to this song, but the key isn't singable, okay, then it might be a great idea, but don't do it. Don't do something where somebody can't sing just because it was a great idea. Okay, that's what I would say. But if it's a song, and don't be afraid, again, if it's in this key and it needs to be in this key, and you've got two songs that work really well together, but they're distant keys, don't be afraid to cadence, and then start the new song in the new key. It's like we talked about before. If you have two songs and they're really distant keys, it helps make for a break. And if, I don't know, just what I'm looking for is just ultimately you want your service. What we're asked to do, lady and gentlemen, what we were asked to do is put on an hour and a quarter, hour and a half, 2 hour service every week. Everything changes, brand new. I mean, that's amazing that we put it together. We come together and everybody's got their own part. What we want is to have this service that we haven't rehearsed, right? Or we've rehearsed parts of it. But we come together, we make it all flow, and that's the key. We want it to make sense and to make it flow and to make it accessible to the congregation. So your portion of it, the music portion of it, make sure it flows. Whatever you need to do to make sure it flows. I will be listening and watching what you do next week with your music to see it flow, and with yours when you send it in. And maybe we can, I don't know, maybe we can put some of that on here. I don't know if we can do that. But flow. Makes sense.
Sir.
Okay. I don't think we got any snow, did we?
Oh, not.
Like,